All right. Hi, everyone. I warned you this would happen, and I guess it happened. Let me say a few words before we get started. I appreciate that you all made arrangements to be here on very short notice. Yesterday, Dean Barry emailed us about 30 minutes before he sent out the email to the entire student body, so we had zero notice. I suspect a lot of professors simply canceled class today. I wasn't going to do that. My goal with this process is to make things as normal as humanly possible. I realize we're sitting here on these virtual screens, or about 30 of you right here. Not what you signed up for, not what you paid for. And I'll be candid, when you have these sorts of online learning experiences, you lose something. There's no way around it. There's no way to avoid it. All I can do is do the best we can. So I'm here in my house. I'm wearing a suit and tie, even though I'm in my house. I want this to be as familiar as you can. I think Xavier, someone asked, the picture on the left is the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and the picture on the right is the signing of the Constitution. That should not come as a surprise, because that's how I decorate my office. But here we are. I have iClicker on. Please sign in for attendance. If you're using your phone for the Zoom, then I don't know if you can do it right now, but I'll leave it on until later, so just sign in eventually. My goal here is to conduct class as close as possible to regular. And what I plan to do is go through the roll alphabetically. So I have the roll sheet here. Ala's first, AJ I think is second, and then Caitlin's third, and then Brian's fourth, and Rebecca's, and so on. If you could sign into class the next time, and when you put your name, just put your last name, comma first, like Blackman, comma Josh. That way you're all sorted alphabetically, which is very helpful for me, so I can easily find you. There are only about 30 of you here. I had 65 in my afternoon class. I see in the chat the link isn't working for some people. I'm doing the best I can. If it's not working for you, I also sent a YouTube link. My YouTube camera is on as well. So if you can't connect to Zoom, please just watch YouTube. After this class is over, South Texas will share this Zoom file to the school's streaming site. I am not going to put this on YouTube. The reason why is that I don't want all of your beautiful faces on YouTube. That's just not something that I want. No, you're all shaking your heads. Absolutely not. No. So the YouTube camera is just on me. It's not going to pick you up. So don't worry, you're safe. But if you want to watch this later, you can. So someone said, it was Catherine, said use the number at the end of the link, plugged into audio. Okay. Once you join the Zoom session, please put your microphone on mute. The reason why you put your microphone on mute is feedback. If everyone has their mic on, is a lot of sound and there's a lot of feedback and it sounds like garbage. So just keep your microphone on mute. How this is going to work is I'm going to call on you. I'll say, Allah, and then you'll unmute yourself. I can't unmute you. You have to do that yourself. So I'll call on you, and then when you're done, put yourself back on mute. I'll go to the next person in line. Just a few general thoughts. You're actually in pretty good shape. My day students, you love the day students, don't you? They had backdrops that were not the best. Dirty laundry in their beds, underwear and stuff in their beds. I don't want to see that. So for whatever reason you have a backdrop that you don't feel like sharing, my friends, if you go preferences and you select virtual backgrounds, you can change your background, right? The real Corona, right? One of my kids had the San Francisco. This is like, you don't want to be right here. This is not where you want to be. It's very dangerous there right now. But if you don't like what your backdrop is, just select one, and you'll be normal. But I think you're okay. My day students, I don't need to see people's beds with laundry on it. Just it's not something I want to see. There you go. People are turning them on. Very good. Okay. There is a chat feature. Everyone sees a little chat button. If you click that along the bottom, You can type in, yes, Angie has dogs, I see. You can type in remarks. There's also an option to raise your hand, which is kind of weird. So if you see in the top where it says like participants, and there's a little feature if you mouse over your name that says raise hand, that's the virtual equivalent of raising your hand. I'll get a little notification. It sucks. This is not how any of us want to learn. You didn't pay for a correspondence course when you enrolled in South Texas. It's not what you paid for. I'm not happy about it. None of us are. But there are public health reasons why we're doing this, which I cannot stop. Now, someone's going to ask me about the final exam. I have no idea. I really don't know. God willing, we'll be back in school soon, and we can have the final exam in class, and I'll be happy to bring cookies for you all to enjoy it. But I don't know. Almost every law school in the country at this point is online only. So you're not the only ones. I understand some of my colleagues cancel class. Did you have tax before this? Yes, I'm seeing nods. Okay. And you can also do reactions. These are actually helpful. You can give a little thumbs up, or if I'm doing a good job, you can give me clap, 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 right? There's no poop emojis. Please don't even try it. Don't even think about it. If that's a feature, don't do it because I don't want to see it. I think that's just about everything I want to say at the outset. Again, we thank you for your flexibility. This is not what any of us wanted to do at all. Sign into the iClicker attendance when you get a chance. That's all I have. I have my lecturator role. I'm going to teach. It's very hard to stop me from teaching. You're not going to stop me. So as long as I have you here in this sort of Ready Player One grid of all these virtual avatars, I think I'll be ready to go. All right. Any questions? Anyone else? Start video. Yeah, exactly. Question, since you have classes recorded, how can we use that? That's from Colleen. Colleen, if you want to watch my lectures from last year, they'll be a lot more normal. So all of my lectures from last year are on a playlist, and you're welcome to watch it. This is going to be pretty similar. I actually did a class this afternoon. I thought it went well, and you'll be okay. All right, anyone else? All right, let me see if I can figure out this poll. Let's see if I can do this poll question. All right, let's see if this actually works. Okay, poll question. Let's see if this first time I'm doing this, but let me see if I can do a poll here instead of iClicker, so you don't have to click on 5 things at once. Okay. I'm typing in the poll question. Save. Okay. Polling. Launch poll. Ah. Do you see the question? Just shake your head yes. Okay, very good. Okay, go ahead and vote. Thank you for the. I appreciate the head nods. These are actually very helpful. Oh, they show the answers in real time. This is actually very stressful. Oh no. Let's see. Another 6% of you voted. This actually isn't that bad. Okay. All right, another 5 seconds or so, then I'll cut it off. It's pretty close, actually. And Ala, I'm warning you're up first. Sorry, my friend. Yeah, the AA name. Okay. All right, I think we got just about everyone voted that I'm going to have. Let's see what we got. All right, so the results, which I think you can see, about 40% put true, and about 58% put false. So Ala, would you mind, sir, putting yourself off mute, please? All right, and the way this is going to work is when he starts talking, I'm going to put his face front and center. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay. So if I go pin, it sounds really bad, but if I go pin video, everyone sees him now, right? Yes? Yes, okay, I'm seeing heads. All right, so Ala, let me ask you a question first. When I say police power, what does that phrase mean?
That is the power that is given to the state
Good.
That is pretty much the power that's excluded from the federal government. It's given to the state.
Good common law answer, but let's be more precise for property, right? What are the three primary heads of conduct that can be regulated under the police power? There are three, you can check your notes, that's fine. You'll learn to switch tabs quickly in this thing. You don't have to look at the video all the time. In fact, I am switching back and forth between my video and my notes. Okay. What are the three heads, Allah? 3 or 4, depending how you count them, but at least 3.
I'm not sure what you're asking exactly. Are you talking about like height, use, and area?
No. What are the 3 categories of the police power that the state can regulate? I mentioned in class the other day. There are 3 categories. And part of what I try to do, I try and switch back and forth between me and the student so it doesn't get too monotonous. The people have short attention spans. Don't cheat in the chat. Let them answer it. Stop it, Leslie. Do you have it, Allah, or no?
I don't.
All right. AJ, want to put yourself up for mute, please? There you are. Here. What are the 3 heads or the 3 categories of the police power? What are the 3 areas of conduct that the state can regulate with the police power?
I know I have it in 1 second.
That's okay. Take your time. We're not in our usual elements here. That's quite all right.
Is it health, safety, and welfare?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Health, safety, and welfare, right? May I make this topical? The quarantine power is the quintessential aspect of the police power, right? The ability to lock people up to make sure they can't go outside. Social distancing sounds so much nicer than quarantine, but basically a forced quarantine. So health, safety, and welfare, and morals. The 4th one is morals, morality. This is one people don't like talking about, but the state does have some authority to regulate morality. Not so much anymore after Justice Kennedy, but there still is some area for moral-based regulation. Okay. So let's go back to our question, right? Our poll question. Let's see who's next. I think Caitlin, you're next. Want to put yourself up for me, please? Okay, very good. Thank you. Let me see if we can find you. Oh, there you are. Okay. Do you see the grid of all the people when I do that?
Yes, I have a grid.
Yeah, there's like a lot of people. Okay, so Caitlin, let's go back to our question, right? And the question is this. When the government exercises police power over land use, it will never have to provide just compensation. In what circumstances, Caitlin, must the government provide just compensation, right? When do they have to provide compensation?
And that's when they're doing a taking.
Good.
Right? Like they're trying to, oh my gosh, my words. When they're exercising eminent domain.
Yes.
Then they would have to
Yes.
pay.
Exactly right.
Something just.
Right. The Fifth Amendment. Right. The Fifth Amendment says. Let me try this. The problem with the screen share is it kills the video. So I'll just type my notes in the chat, and that actually might be, I think, more effective, because when you do the screen share, it destroys everything. So the Fifth Amendment says, "Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation." Okay. Caitlin is exactly right. When the government takes property, it has to pay compensation, right? When they take property, they have to pay compensation. So now, Brian, you here?
I am.
You are, okay. Okay, so let me just put your camera on. I'll get quicker at this, I promise. Okay, so Brian, let me ask you this question. When the government exercises its police power, are they taking property?
They are not.
They are not. Why not?
they're not physically taking the property, they're just regulating what you can use it for.
Okay, you're right, but let me just tweak your answer a little bit. We'll do some cases this semester where diminishing property value may be a taking, where they don't have to physically take it. But you're generally right. Think of this like a coin, right? On one side of the coin is a taking, in which case you have to pay police power. And on the second side of the coin is the police power, where you don't have to pay compensation. So if you're exercising the police power, free, no compensation, government gets off. If you are taking the property, you have to pay. So in all this litigation, you have a very similar dynamic where the government says, oh, no, we are exercising the police power. There is no taking. And when you have the plaintiff, the property owner says, you are taking my property, pay me. And there's this never-ending debate about which bucket, which category you fall into. Do you fall into the takings category, or do you fall into the police power category? And that's really the million-dollar question. So go back, Rebecca, you here?
Yes.
Okay, Rebecca. So let me ask you this question. All right, let's go back to our poll. Where are you? Yeah, if you do alphabetical order, next week that'll be.
I put my last name first.
Yeah. Oh, you are. Oh, you are way ahead of things. That's fantastic. Okay. Spotlight video. There we go. There we go. Okay, so Rebecca, let me ask this question. Let's go back to our poll. Is the poll true or false?
I put true.
Okay, why'd you put true?
Because when the government uses police power, they don't consider that a taking.
Yes. This answer is true. When the government exercises its police power, right? When the government exercises the police power, it is always going to be free. That there's no requirement to pay compensation. So here we got this one wrong as a class. But I mean, 40% is not terrible. But the answer here is true. And you have to keep this in mind. The government will always say, it's police power, right? Think of the first case with the amortization principle. The government said, we're just zoning, it's just zoning. And the court says, no, it's a taking, you gotta pay. So we have this never-ending debate about whether you're in the police power land or if you're in the takings land, okay? Okay. Any questions? Either put chat or throw your hands up or wave SOS, or I don't know, whatever the hell you're doing last week, this thing, or whatever that was. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is like a creepy Brady Bunch thing. It's just a very bizarre 30-member Brady Bunch where everyone's in their house. Okay, I get thumbs up, good. All right, I got actual thumbs up and virtual thumbs up. All right, so let's start. Last class we talked about zoning. And at least in the city of Euclid, it was very rigid. Right, you had you have U1 through U6. You have these very precise guidelines. You have area 1, you have area 2, you have height 1, you have height 2. You have very stringent guidelines, and you can imagine that problems arise where things don't work as they're supposed to. The topic today is how to get some flexibility. Right? How to maybe get some relief from zoning. The first principle that I want to talk about is what's called a pre-existing non-conforming use. Okay? A pre-existing non-conforming use. Okay, I think Alexis, you're next. Can you put yourself off mute, please?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Alexis. Alexis, do you want to tell us, please, what is a pre-existing non-conforming use?
A pre-existing use is one in which, so, I don't know, I mean, I feel like the definition's in the word, that a building or property has been in use before there's an ordinance,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of zoning
Good.
restriction.
Good.
And that use may be in conflict with whatever the ordinance is.
Good. So Alexis, let me just modify your answer. When the building was constructed in the first place, did the zoning ordinance have any effect when the building was originally constructed?
No.
At what point did the zoning ordinance go into effect?
In the case,
In general. With a non-conforming use, when did the ordinance go into effect? Before or after the building was constructed?
after.
Yes. No, exactly right. The defining feature of the pre-existing non-conforming use is that when the building was first constructed, everything was fine. There were no problems whatsoever. But at some point later in time, the law was changed, right? So maybe when the building was first constructed, it was zoned residential or commercial. But maybe later in time, they zoned it to only be residential, right? So as a result, you have what's called grandfathering, right? You've heard that expression elsewhere, grandfathering, right? Where the prior use is grandfathered in. But grandfathering may not last forever, right? Grandfathering may not last forever. So for example, let's say you have a grandfathered property and you make changes to it. You may lose your grandfathering status. Maybe you abandon the property, you lose your grandfathering status. Maybe you transfer it to a third party, you lose your grandfather status. I had one case when I was clerking many years ago where there was a garbage dump inside the city of Cincinnati, right? It'd been there for like 100 years, like the early 1900s, and they could not get rid of it. And like every time they made even the slightest change, you made a change, you lose your grandfather status. And they kept losing in court because they hadn't really changed the usage of the lot, right? But there's one way that cities can go proactive, and they can basically kill grandfathered uses. And that's what's called amortization. Is Andrew here? Andrew here? No? Anna? Is Anna here? Hey, just put yourself on mute, please.
Are you saying Angie?
Oh, no, I said Anna. Anna Brown. Okay, thank you, Anna. So let me ask you a question, right? What is amortization? What is amortization?
Well, in the case, it says it's any commercial enterprise which would constitute a pre-existing use and which would be in conflict with the requirements set forth, like in the zoning laws that were created.
Good. And Anna, let me just ask you a follow-up, please. If you have a building that doesn't conform, right, to a prior use, and the city has an amortization policy, what must you do?
I believe that they either have to comply or they can be like kicked out.
That's exactly right. Now, generally, how do you kick out a building? What does it actually mean to kick out a building? Can you,
I know in the case they basically kind of gave them a notice that said you have to be out within, I think it was 90 days. And
but what does it mean to be out? Just be precise. So let's say in the case we have an adult bookstore.
They'll close your business.
They'll shut it down. That's exactly right. No, that's exactly right. Thank you, Anna. Amortization is a harsh remedy. With amortization, the government says, we've determined that your use is no longer conforming to our laws. You might think you're grandfathered, you're not. And guess what? You have X days to shut down. Now, usually amortization is a couple years, 5 years, 10 years, right? Enough that in theory at least, you can put your affairs in order and wind down your business in orderly fashion, right? I don't want to put this too lightly, but there'll be businesses in this country that'll be shut down soon, right? The government will say, close your shops to prevent the spread of disease. The same sort of police power that's at issue in the quarantine is the police power for zoning. I never made this point before, but it's indeed. If you look at Italy right now, most stores are closed. I think we'll see that at some point here, as we learn property. All right. So I think Kevin, you're up next. Put yourself off mute, please. Okay, there you are. All right, Kevin, you want to give me the facts, please, in the first case, the Pennsylvania Northwest Distributor case?
In this case, there was a town, Moon Township, Pennsylvania,
Huh?
where the appellate basically opened up a adult store.
Yeah, and let me just just pause you for a second. If you don't know what that is, they sell pornography, right, and other stuff. I think all of you know what that is, but I have to pretend you don't know anything, but you all know what that is. All right, go on, Kevin. Sorry to interrupt.
So they basically opened up. He opened up a bookstore.
Uh-huh.
And then later on, after the bookstore was already open, the township decided to regulate the adult bookstore by amortization.
All right, so Kevin, let me just pause you for a second.
Okay.
How much time elapsed between when that bookstore opened up and when the city council actually took some action? Like, how much time actually passed?
It looked like 5 days.
Yeah, really quick, right? Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So look, let me tell you guys, government usually moves very slowly unless they're motivated, right? So just look at this chronology. The bookstore opens up on May 4th, right? By May 8th, 4 days later, they put out a notice that they're going to amend the zoning ordinances, right? And then within about 2 or 3 weeks after that, they actually adopt these ordinances. And I'll get to the ordinance in a second, but this is really fast. So here's what happened. This is Moon Township. It's western Pennsylvania, very conservative town outside of Pittsburgh. They learned that someone was bringing this filth, this smut into their community, and they took decisive action to shut it down. I had a similar case when I was clerking, also in western Pennsylvania. What happened there was not an adult bookstore, but a methadone clinic. Everyone know what that is? A methadone clinic is a treatment for opiates. Now, this was back in 2009 or 10, before the opiate thing blew up, but this was an issue in huge parts of western Pennsylvania, Ohio. We didn't quite know how big it was, but it was very significant. People had these addictions, and this was a treatment for these people. So you had this one company that decided to build an opiate clinic in western Pennsylvania. Within, I think, a couple days of the city learning about this, they enacted an ordinance that basically bans all methadone clinics within city limits. Right? They just banned them all. This was enacted right away. So at that point, the clinic says fine. They found an industrial lot outside of town. It wasn't near anything. It was all an industrial park. So what did the city do? This is very creative. They passed an ordinance saying you can't build any methadone clinics near any parks, right? There were no parks nearby. The city designated a strip of grass in front of the clinic as a park. So basically there was a little strip of grass, and that was a city park. And as a result, the clinic got shut down. Now, eventually the city lost in court. They got a lot of damages, and it was bad, but it's very common where cities will radically use the zoning power to keep people out. It happens all the time. Okay? All right, Kevin. Angie, I think you're next. Can you put your phone off mute, please?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell us what kind of doggies you got there?
Yeah. Pointers.
Pointers. All right. Well, they're very cute. Okay.
Thank you.
Hopefully they'll let you answer the question. So Angie, tell me, what ordinances did the Board of Supervisors actually adopt at this meeting?
It looks like it was an amortization clause.
Okay, so just be a little precise. What exactly did these clauses do?
Let's see. Any commercial use would constitute a pre-existing use and would be in conflict with the requirements set forth in the amendment to the Moon Township zoning ordinance.
Okay, but be precise. What exactly was prohibited by the ordinance? What?
Okay, wait, let me see. Zoning laws 2 to 3 weeks later, public hearing took place. Clause of notice was given. I guess they had 90 days from that date.
You're giving me all the right stuff, but what was prohibited? What did the city actually ban? What was non-conforming now?
I don't know.
Well, what kind of business was this?
It was a porn shop.
A porn shop, yes, ma'am. And what did the city say about porn shops? Where were they allowed to exist?
I guess they were trying to regulate adult commercial businesses.
Right, but where were these businesses allowed to exist?
I don't know, Professor Blackman. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. That's fine. Waji, I'll come to you next. Waji, what was the actual restriction that was imposed?
Well, I'm trying to look for it. I see imposes extensive restrictions on the location and operation of adult commercial enterprises.
That's right.
And let's see.
Where were these businesses allowed to operate within the city?
Space restrictions. So section 803, there's a footnote. No-
Yes, the footnotes, my friends. Let me tell you something. Always read the damn footnotes. Didn't I tell you that in class? Didn't I make a point of saying for the bar, read the damn footnotes? Read the footnotes.
You did.
I did. It's okay, Angie. We're all friends here. We're all friends. So, Waji, you want to read me that footnote, please?
Yep, so you cannot have that kind of establishment within 500
That's
feet of
it.
a pre-existing school,
That's
hospital,
it.
nursing home, group care facility,
That's
public
right.
church establishment selling alcohol or another adult commercial enterprise. And
Go on. Yeah. Keep going.
such an enterprise can operate within 1,000 feet, zone residential.
All right. Thank you, Waji. Appreciate that. So let me tell you something, my friends. These laws are very common, that you can't build within 500 feet of this and 1,000 feet of that. I wanted you to show me any city map in the country. If you draw a 500-foot radius around every school, hospital, nursing home, park, church, bar, there's nowhere left, right? There are no spaces that fit outside those circles. And if you want to do 1,000 feet outside of any sort of residential area, you're basically zoning these businesses out of existence. And this is so common. For example, sex offenders. They can't live within 500 feet of a school, right? Try going anywhere in Houston if you're not 500 feet within a school. They're everywhere. In any crowded area, these places exist everywhere. Perversely, they're allowed to live next door to kids. They can't live near a school, which makes no sense. But these laws are insane. In some places, in Miami, for example, you have these sex offenders who have to live under highway underpasses because there's nothing nearby with these highways. It's out in the middle of nowhere. So these laws make no sense. I'll give you one other example. You'll take criminal procedure soon. And with criminal procedure, you have what are called sentencing enhancements, where if you commit a crime in a certain area, you have a higher jail sentence. So selling drugs, of course, is illegal. What if you sell drugs near a playground or a park? You get a higher sentence, right? Guess what every federal housing project has? A playground. So it's basically an automatic enhancement when any drug sale occurs in a federal housing project. It's automatic. And that means like more years in jail. So when you have these like within X feet of playground park, it's just like saying check, automatic, because everywhere you are. So the city council here wasn't stupid, right? They knew that by restricting themselves to 500 feet of 500 feet of park, playground, etc., you're gonna be screwed. Someone asked, is Crim Pro required? I don't believe it is a required class. I think it probably should be, but you should all take it. Even if you're never arrested, you'll have a friend who's arrested. And it's good, I'm serious. You're gonna get that phone call. It's like, look, you're gonna get that phone call one night where it's me, I just got arrested, and you're gonna have to know what the hell to do. I've gotten the phone call, we all get that phone call. Oh yes, if you're below a certain GPA, I think there are more required classes. That's correct, thank you. I think it's Lisa. Okay. So if I can get just the way this ordinance works. On paper, right? On paper, it says you can't build within 500 feet. But in reality, it means you can't build anywhere. All right. So now, Melanie, are you here?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Jake, did you raise your hand? I'm going to mute you. Jake, did you raise your hand?
Who's Jake?
I think
you saying me, my son? Are you saying?
Oh, that's your son. I know your son. I had a son last year. Yeah, Mike. I'm sorry. I know your. I know your name.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit older than my son, but.
Oh, I like both of you. You're both funny guys.
The same thing can be said for if you basically have a bunch of cocaine and you make it into crack, then it expands the punishment.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is that because you were making it sound like kind of a racial thing, like they know what they're doing as far as the housing projects and stuff.
Yeah.
So would that be the same thing? I mean, I'm not being controversial. I'm just asking.
You made it 35 minutes without being controversial. It's actually very impressive.
Am I controversial?
No. I appreciate it. I know your name. Your son's name was Jake. I just saw the last name. It clicked. It clicked in my head. Your son was a good guy. So this is beyond our class, but I'll talk about it. Historically, in the 1980s, there was a huge push to criminalize very heavily crack cocaine. If you don't know the difference, cocaine is the powder. Crack is when you cook it. You basically heat it up and you make it into this sort of this solid, I've never seen in person, you make this very solid substance, and it's apparently much more potent. And the sentences were much more significant. In the last decade, Congress has reduced the sentencing disparity, the disparity between powder versus crack cocaine. There are books written about the racial and income angle about this, far beyond what I want to talk about today. But take Crim Pro. If you can, take a class in federal sentencing law. Very useful. You don't know how to get sentenced. You'll be in trouble. But these are all good classes you should end up taking at some point in your law school career. Okay, good, Jake. Mike. I keep saying Jake. I'm sorry. I know what your name is. All right, Melanie. You had a respite. Now you're here.
Okay.
Oy vey. Happy Perm, everyone. If you didn't have your Hamantaschen, now you'll have it. All right. Where was I? Okay, so what would happen to a business that, an adult business that was within 500 feet of a school or park or whatever? What do they have to do?
If they have an amortization period?
Well, what is this amortization period? Tell me.
Oh, it says, in Moon Township, they have 90 days to come into compliance.
Right. What does that mean practically, Melanie, for a business to come into compliance? What must the business do within 90 days to come into compliance?
They either have to move more than 500 feet away
Yeah.
from one of the pre-existing facilities,
Right.
or they can't be a commercial enterprise.
Or they shut down, right? They shut down altogether. And that's exactly right. Thank you, Melanie. The purpose of the amortization principle is to basically shut down the business. They have no choice. They shut down. I guess in theory they can move elsewhere, but I'm pretty sure if you look at the map of that county, nowhere in the county could you fit the business within 500 feet of the school, park, etc. Right? So they have to shut down. Okay, Lisa, where are you? Okay. You here, Lisa?
Yeah.
Hello. Okay, very good. So, did the city, Lisa, offer any sort of compensation to the business for shutting them down?
I don't think that they did.
Nope, they did not. What did they tell? What was their ruling? What kind of consolation did they give?
Well, I know that they had told them that they couldn't be within the 500 feet of the school or 1,000 feet of a residential area.
Very good.
And to be honest, I really didn't pay attention to that part.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. They gave nothing.
I don't think they offered him anything.
No, that's exactly right. They offered nothing. Thank you so much, Lisa. They offered nothing, right? They basically said, we don't want you in our community. Get lost. Scram. Get out of here. That's all they said. Okay? So instead of offering something, they said shut down. At that point, the business went to court, right? And Michael, you here?
I'm here.
Okay. So Michael, tell me please, sir, what did they argue in court? What did the adult business argue in court?
I believe they argued that this was a taking, therefore they had to pay for the taking. That there was no police power.
Well, do they think the statute was constitutional at all?
They did not.
Right, so Michael, this is actually an important point. Did the business want to be paid for their losses, or did they want to stay in business?
I stay in business unless they're going to get paid more than it said.
Right, so that's an important point. If the statute was constitutional, they'd have to shut down. But if the statute's unconstitutional, what happens to their business?
It gets taken?
No. If the statute's unconstitutional, do they have to move?
No, they don't.
That's right. And here's the important point. Thank you, Michael. Here's the important point to discuss, right? They weren't seeking compensation, right? We'll have cases this semester where they seek compensation. The argument said was the statute was on its face unconstitutional. If the statute is a taking and the statute does not give compensation, the statute is invalid. And if the statute's invalid, the amortization period is irrelevant. They don't have to shut down. So this was what you call a facial challenge to the statute, a facial challenge to the statute. They argued the statute was unconstitutional on its face. Okay, Terry, are you here? Terry? There you are. I see you. Okay, Terry. Thank you. So, you hear us okay? Oh, I don't hear you. Try it again. I think you might be on mute. I see you. Try it now. Oh, I don't hear you. I know you're talking. I'm sorry. We'll come back to you a little bit later. See if you can maybe figure out a little bit later. Okay. All right. Is Sarah here? Sarah? No, Sarah.
Then I go by Jessica.
Oh, I was wondering who the hell Sarah was. Right,
I can't.
Yeah. Hold on.
Okay.
There you are. I was, who the hell's Sarah? Right, I never actually look at your real names.
That's me. I have two names.
Okay, well, Sarah, Jessica. Oh, okay. So Sarah, yeah. Does the court here hold that that the amortization principles are constitutional?
That I think it said all amortization principles were unconstitutional.
What?
I thought they said that this one was unconstitutional.
Well, what did the majority say? Could an amortization principle ever be constitutional?
Yeah, I mean, they said that they did say that. God, I don't know. I did this policy thing where I'm like, I guess it's not constitutional because if you could do that, then you could just basically put people out of business.
Well, let's start this one, Sarah. What did the concurrence say? The concurring opinion.
The concurring opinion said that it said that this one wasn't reasonable, but they could be reasonable. This one was, it didn't give them enough time.
Right. What did the concurrence think would make an amortization principle constitutional?
I may want to talk about that. Looked at the last paragraph, but they felt like people should be able to change the character of their neighborhood.
Yes, very good.
Area.
Very good. Very good.
Said that you needed to give them enough time to dissolve their business or start something new.
Yes.
Or,
Right. Exactly. Right. So yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. So I thought that they said that this one was unconstitutional, and that I guess they really said the whole thing was unconstitutional.
Yes. Bingo. That's exactly right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So if I cut you off, I apologize. The timing of this is a little bit off. But I think we're good enough. The majority hold that under the Pennsylvania Constitution, Terry, I'll come to you in a second, okay? But the majority holds that under the Pennsylvania Constitution, amortization rules are always unconstitutional, right? They're always constitutional, okay? Under the Pennsylvania Constitution, they're always unconstitutional. There's no balancing that goes on, right? Sometimes you think in law about balancing tests, you figure, well, how long is the period? How much time do they have to wind down their business? To the majority, none of that matters. But to the concurrence argues that there might be an amortization principle that's reasonable. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years. The concurrence says there's no reason why a neighborhood must be frozen in place. A neighborhood should be allowed to change the composition of its character over time. This one's radical. 90 days is unreasonable, but something a little bit longer would work. So the majority declares this is facially unconstitutional. It's a taking, and if the government wants to do this, they have to pay for compensation. Does the government want to pay for it? Of course not. Of course not. They don't want to pay for it. So instead, they'd say, never mind, let the adult bookstore stay. Okay, Terry, let's see if we can try your microphone again. Okay, can you put yourself off mute? You hear us? You want to say something? No, we don't. I don't hear you. I'm so sorry. If you check your if you go meeting preferences, or I'm sorry, if you go to the preferences option and you select your microphone under audio, you can maybe select a different microphone. You see that? And maybe select a different microphone. Still don't hear you. I'm sorry. I got to move on. I'm sorry, Terry. We'll figure this out later, okay? I promise. Okay. All right. So back to me. All right. So everyone get the holding in the Northwest Distributor case. Now, this is a ruling based in the Pennsylvania Constitution. It's not based in the federal Constitution. Some other states have actually held that a amortization principle is constitutional if it's reasonable, that it's of a short duration. So you have both these sorts of rulings. Okay. Any questions on the Pennsylvania case? Anyone raising their hand? Mike. Yes. Unmute. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Melanie asked a question. She didn't know how to do it, I guess. She's down. I saw you down there waiting, Melanie.
I had the same question. Thanks, Mike. I had the same question as Alexis. Is this like a thing where this is what New Jersey does, even though we're in Pennsylvania, or is this like a common law in New Jersey?
Yeah. I don't think this is a common law, modern law approach. I know you'd love me to tell you this, but it's a matter of state constitutional law, so it's not really a modern versus common law thing. I think if you're asking about the exam, God willing we get there, if it's Pennsylvania, you can assume they're unconstitutional. Elsewhere, I might have to tell you, but there's not like a strict divide in this one. That's a very good question. I haven't done like a 50-state survey on which ones are valid. Malin, is that you?
Yes, I didn't get that. So, if in the exam you're going to say whether you are asking about Pennsylvania, and we will have to remember that this was the one that wasn't constitutional.
Well, you should know this case, right? And by the way, if you can all use headphones, it prevents that feedback where you hear me twice when you're doing this. But I'm not. Yeah, but as a general matter, if I give you a case from, say, Pennsylvania, and we have one case in Pennsylvania, you should know that case. So that's actually an easy one. The harder one is if they give you a different state, right? The rule is amortizations on constitutional Pennsylvania. I don't know beyond that, and I wouldn't expect you to know beyond that. Okay? Fair? Okay, fair. Thank you. All right. What else? Questions on anyone else raising their hand? It's such a weird thing. You raise your hand on it. It's making do. We're actually making for a good time, actually. All right, anything else? All right, let's move on. All right, the next type of flexibility that I want to discuss is distinction between a variance and a special exception. A variance and a special exception. Zoning rules can be very rigid, very stiff. And the government creates these two categories to give flexibility for zoning decisions: variances and special exceptions. Students get these confused every semester without fail. They mess these up. They're very different. All right. Who am I up to? Corbett, I think you're next. Are you here? Corbett? I see. You there? No? I saw her a minute ago. She's here. There you are. Can you hear us? Corbett? I see you.
Hi, I can, sorry.
Okay, that's quite all right.
Lost Wi-Fi.
That's okay. Yeah, that's.
Sorry, what was the question?
I had a day student who actually emailed me and said it was very hard to connect because I was driving around and it was buffering. I just wanted to... So Corbett, help me out here. What is a right? What is a variance? What is a variance?
Variance is, it's like something that's.
One more time, I think you broke up.
Well, it's two things. It's something that's granted, so that someone can continue doing something. It's necessary to avoid imposing an undue hardship.
Okay, there we go. That's what I wanted. Thank you, Corbett. The defining characteristic of a variance is it's an exception to the usual rules. And the exception is created in the case of a unexpected hardship. And I want you to focus on your notes on the phrase unexpected, right? There are some problems that that people can anticipate that are fairly common, right? Variances are problems that are not anticipated. They're problems that are not common. And you have to show what's called an undue hardship, right? An undue hardship means that there's going to be some really significant burden on the property owner. And unless you give this variance, they're stuck. So let's try the first case. I'll come back to the special exception in a few minutes. But let's try the first case. I think Celeste, you're next. You here? Yep, loud and clear. And we got your video up as well. Thank you, Celeste. So Celeste, you want to give me the facts, please, in Commons versus Westford Zoning Board of Adjustments, 1980, New Jersey. Very, very short case. I'm sure you guys love this one.
I'm sorry, you said Commons?
Yeah, it's the Commons versus Westwood Zoning Board of Adjustments. That's in there, right? No? Is that in there? Oh.
I feel like
Hold on.
my next case that I had was
Okay, I'm sorry. I think, was this one they took out of the book? Oh.
In there.
It's in there. I'm not crazy, right?
Is this, oh, okay.
Okay, no, don't tell me I'm crazy, because occasionally they remove stuff from the book and like I just remember it. Okay, but that's in there. Yeah, it's mentioned kind of in the notes. Do you have it, Celeste?
I don't have this briefed up, but I do have the undue hardship and the not substantially impinging upon the public good and the intent and purpose of the zoning plan and ordinance.
All right, so let's do it backwards, right? Celeste, what are the circumstances in which a variance will be given in New Jersey?
That there is, must be necessary to avoid imposing an undue hardship on the owner of land in
Good.
question.
Good. Okay, good. Right, so I'll come back to me. Thank you, Celeste. When you have some unexpected problem, the city can grant a variance. And at least in New Jersey, it's a two-factor test. The first factor is this variance necessary to avoid imposing a hardship on the owner, right? You have to have a really strong hardship. It can't just be a matter of convenience. And also, the variance can affect the public good and the zoning plan, right? You can't grant a variance that subverts a zoning plan. So I think next is Leslie. You here, Leslie? Leslie?
I'm here.
Okay. So do you have the facts in the New Jersey case, the Board of Commons case?
So I have that, I didn't write his name, but I put plaintiff wants to build a house.
Yeah, Weingarten, that's fine.
Okay, so he wants to build his house, but the lot that he owns isn't built enough because there's like zoning.
Isn't what enough? He said build enough?
The lot is not big enough.
Big enough. Very good.
Because the zoning laws say that the house has to be a minimum size, but then it also says that the yard has to be a minimum size.
That's right.
And when you take both of those zoning regulations into factor, he's either gonna have to build a house that's not gonna meet the size, or he'll meet the size, but then the yard isn't gonna fit. So
Okay, very good. Very good, very good. Yeah, thank you, Leslie, very good. So this is actually a common zoning law, where the law says your house has to be a certain number of square feet, but you must have what's called frontage. Frontage is how much yard exists between your house and the sidewalk. So basically, it was impossible to build in this land. The zoning ordinance in this town in Jersey rendered the property useless. You couldn't build anything. Maybe you could pitch a tent, right, go camping or something, but you can't actually build any sort of permanent structure because you're violating the law. So here, Weingarten sought a variance. Shockingly, the neighbors opposed the plan. Neighbors always oppose plans because they're neighbors, and that's what neighbors do. Some of you will learn to hate your neighbors very soon because we're seeing a lot of them. This is the world we're living in. But neighbors always oppose building plans. And the neighbors said that Weingarten failed to demonstrate the hardship. Okay, Mac, are you up next, I think? Are you here? Mac? No Mac. Okay. Demetrius, are you here? Oh for 2. All right. Holly, I don't think is here. She emailed me. Nicole, are you here? Are you guys in the same room? Are you in the same place? That's not fair. This is social distancing. You're not supposed to do this.
My computer isn't working.
Oh God. Oh, okay. Hold on. Is your other computer on?
No, we got it. We're good. I'll just do this.
Okay. Well, try next time to have headphones because it sounds like Darth Vader style.
My whole thing isn't working. I can only get a picture of mine.
Okay, that's right. That was actually kind of cool because you moved from one window to the next one. That was actually kind of cool. Okay, so do you know what the court did here, Nicole?
So the court remanded for further proceedings because they said they needed a submitted plan for the proposed housing.
Okay, but did they think the variance might be appropriate here?
Yes, they did.
Why?
Because the fact that a lot of the specifications, even though it couldn't be wide enough, there was enough square footage on it.
Right. Thank you so much, Nicole. That's okay. So basically what we have here is a situation where if that's actually kind of creepy, you're sitting right next to each other and it's like you're in the same room. That's actually okay, that's okay. The court basically said that if this zoning law is so rigid, you're rendering the property irrelevant, right? You can't build anything. Indeed, there were some other houses in the neighborhood that were also non-conforming because they were grandfathered in. So they said it's not that big of a deal to grant a variance here. Now let me tell you, this is rare. In most cases, the courts are deferential and they don't second guess the zoning authorities. So this is a fairly rare case. But I think what you have here is politics, right? Neighbors trying to keep newbies out. This happens all the time. Okay. So any questions on the variance? Right. Again, remember the variance is for an unexpected hardship. That's what the variance is for. Okay. So any question on the variance? Do I see any raised hands? Okay. All right, let's move on. A few notes on variances. Variances can be grandfathered, and they run with the land. So if I have a variance in my property, and I sell it to someone else, right? The variance extends to someone else, so the variance doesn't disappear. Think of it almost kind of like an easement, because they sort of run with the land. They go on forever. Okay, so that's a variance. Any questions? I see Alexis. You have your hand up. I'll unmute you. Yes, Alexis.
Do we, will you tell us that something is unexpected, or?
Well, it's a very good question. I think you'll have to figure out based on the facts, right? There are some things that are easy to anticipate, and that's the second category, the special exception. I'll do that in a minute. But if it's some unexpected thing that popped up out of nowhere, you should know that that's going to be a variance.
Is a hurricane unexpected if you live in Kansas?
Well, what's the land use regulation then in that case?
I don't know. I'm just confused.
Right, and I think there are tornadoes in Kansas. I don't know if there are hurricanes there, but you're in trouble if there's a hurricane in Kansas. But I see your point, right? But I'll give you an example, right? Let's say there's a person with a disability, right? And let's say they need a wheelchair ramp built in front of their house. And let's say that by building the wheelchair ramp, there's not enough frontage, not enough of a front yard for them. I think that would be a good example of a variance, right? That the city didn't anticipate wheelchair ramps, but this pops up and a person needs it, and they can give them the variance so that way he can actually exit his home. That makes sense, Alexis? Yeah? Okay. I think Catherine had a question. Do we need to focus on the second element of the variance? I don't know if that second element applies everywhere, but as a general matter, courts will look to see, are you screwing up the general plan, right? I mean, you can't request a variance that, I really need an adult bookstore in this neighborhood, right? That's probably not going to fly. So I don't know if that second element applies elsewhere, but it's probably useful to think about it in general. Yeah, a lot of these things are not bright line rules that apply in different states. All right, so Jessica, not Sarah, but Jessica asks, I guess I don't see how it was unexpected that a lot in this neighborhood was a different size. Let me answer your question this way, Jessica. When the zoning law was enacted, the lots were already carved out. In other words, the neighborhood was divided up a long time ago, long before the zoning ordinance went into effect. So when the lot was subdivided, it didn't really matter the size. These restrictions came on later. And that's why other homes in the neighborhood were grandfathered in, because they didn't have to deal with it. They were in existence beforehand. That makes sense? I see you're nodding, so I'll take that as a yes. I'll give a thumbs up. Okay. Thank you. What else? Anyone else on this variance case? Look at that. Avery and Nicole are right next to each other, and they're in the same location. I hope you guys are safe and you're washing hands and everything else. What was that? Turn your thing on. Oh, God. Yeah.
I'm your father.
Yeah, exactly. How do you keep unmuting yourself?
Wait, I am?
No, it's Mike.
Oh.
It's fine. It feels more normal that way, at least. Avery, help me out here, my friend. What is a special exception?
Well, I would say that when you have it, when there's a zoning law, then you have a special exception to that law, and you're allowed to have the building there that you otherwise would not be allowed to have. And they have, in the next case, for your special exception is granted. You have these 4 elements.
Okay, all right. So, Avery, let me ask you a follow-up, please. I said with a variance that we're dealing with an unexpected hardship. Are special exceptions unexpected?
No.
In fact, how do we know they're not unexpected? How do we know that they're anticipated? What tells us that these are anticipated?
I guess because they wrote them with these.
Yes, exactly right. The reason, thank you, Avery. The reason why special exceptions are different is the legislature anticipates them. And the reason how we know they're anticipated, right? The reason how we know they're anticipated is because the state legislature writes specific rules. If this happens, if this happens, if this happens, and this happens, then you get your special exception, right? These are circumstances that are thought about in advance. Now, I think Catherine asked, do we need to worry about the undue hardship not being self-imposed? Yeah, I mean, if you cause a hardship yourself, you're not getting a variance. But let's focus on the special exception for a minute, right? With the special exception, the state creates certain criteria. And it's basically a checklist. Check 1, check 2, check 3, check 4. If you check all the boxes, you get your special exception. The important point, though, is that there's no discretion. A variance is based on discretion. Is there some sort of undue hardship? With a special exception, there's no discretion. It's check 1, check 2, check 2, check 3, right? We don't want to give the cities that much authority. This is actually a matter of state constitutional law. What do I mean by that? State constitutional law. The state has the police power, and the state delegates some of that authority to the cities. But the cities can only exercise the power that is precisely delegated. And if the city tries to do too much, you have a delegation problem. The city is going beyond their authorized authority. And that's the problem in the next case, a case called, the Inhabitants of the town of Brunswick, right? In this case, the special exception goes a bit too far. Mike, you're up next, my friend. We've heard enough from you today. Let's hear some more.
Or Jake, either one. I'll answer either one.
All right, that's fine. Bring your son in the background. Make sure your family's healthy and safe, okay?
Well, I got a picture of him back there.
I thought that was him. All right, Mike, you want to give me the facts, please, in the New Brunswick case?
Yes, sir. So Mitchell and David Cope, they wanted to build a 20 apartment buildings on a 21 wooded acre lot, and there was zoning permitted multi-unit apartment buildings if it was under a special exception, and basically they applied for that, and then they just kicked it out, saying that it didn't meet the public welfare.
Well, Mike, give me the four criteria for the special exception in this jurisdiction, please.
I have my notes now.
That's okay. Take your time.
I know that let's see. One was not adversely affect the public welfare or impair the neighborhood's essential character.
Oh, you got two of the four. Yeah, you got two of the four. I'll give you the other two. All right, thanks, Mike. Yesterday, during one of these, we had this crash course on how to use Zoom, and one of my colleagues asked, "How do we mute students?" And they said, "Here, press the mute button." He said, "No. How do you mute them in real life?" And he said, "You can't do that." So let me walk you through. There are four criteria. You get your special exception to build the apartment if four conditions are met. First, the other requirements of the ordinance are met. Okay, that's easy enough. Second, the use will not adversely affect health, safety, or welfare. Third, the use will not defeat the purpose of comprehensive plan. And fourth, the use will not devalue or alter the character of the neighborhood. All right, keep in mind that this is going to be an unelected zoning board making these decisions. Catherine, I think you're up next. Catherine, and she also raised her hand. You there, Catherine?
Yeah, sorry.
That's quite all right. So what was the problem, Catherine, with the zoning board making decisions about excuse me, health, safety, and welfare, or valuing the alter of the character of the neighborhood, altering the character of the neighborhood. What was problematic about the zoning board making those decisions?
They said it was an unconstitutional delegation of legislative power.
Why?
Hold on. Because it could lead to them selectively enforcing the law.
Okay. And those of you who said bless you, thank you. And those of you who said corona, you're going to hell. Yes, Catherine, you're correct. The problem, I was going anyway. Yeah, I'll see you there. No, Rudy Gobert, not going to touch my mic, right? The problem is when you have an unelected board, they can't make determinations about health, safety, or welfare. That's a very important decision. That's way too vague. The legislative body has to give specific conditions for the special exceptions. They can't give discretions, right? So the defining characteristic of the special exceptions is automatic. You go check, check, check. So Alexis, you asked me a question before. How will you know if it's a special exception or a variance? It's going to be baked into the question. If I give you specific criteria, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know it's going to be a special exception. I can't make that up. But if I give you a fax with, some sort of unexpected thing that pops up, you're going to do a variance. So your question's good, Alexis, but it's going to be based on how I frame the question. That makes sense? Okay, very good. Thank you, ma'am. I get thumbs up. Oh, I love thumbs up. Makes me know that people are actually listening. If you don't know, Rudy Gobert was a player on the Utah Jazz, and he tested positive for corona, in part because of him, they canceled the entire NBA season, the Basketball Association. But the other day, he was having a press conference, and the dude was just making fun of things. He was deliberately touching every microphone on the table with his arms and his hands. He had corona. So now those reporters are all quarantined now. It's problematic. Okay. All right. So in other words, the statute here is facial and constitutional, and you can't give this sort of discretion to the zoning board. One way that I can test you on this is if I give you a special exception, say 1 or 2, 3 or 4 factors, and one of them is very vague. You're going to have to know that, this is too much vague. It's not a proper delegation of authority. So that's one way I can test you on all these issues. Okay. All right. We have one more case. Any other questions on the special exception or the variance? All right. Next up is Blessin. You here? Do you have Blessin? No Blessin. All right. Malin, I think I saw you earlier. Are you here? Yep. Just unmute your microphone, please.
Okay.
Here we go. All right. Melanie has a question. I'm sorry, Melanie. Melanie, do you have a question?
Just the same thing as last time. If it doesn't sound like these are common law
No.
rules, these are sort of like the rule.
Yeah, there's not really a bright line common law rule. I'm sorry. I know you want one, but we don't have it. All right, Malin, let's do the last case. Malin, you want to give me the facts, please, in State versus City of Rochester, Minnesota, 1978, please?
Yes. So the plaintiff, Ms. Rodney, contracted to purchase over 1 acre of a parcel to construct an apartment building, and it was near to downtown. But that was contingent to a rezoning of the property from single family and low density residential to high density residential.
Okay. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, that's fine.
There were 2 high density apartment buildings bordered the parcel with single family and low density. Multi-family homes on the other 2 sides.
Good.
And the planning department recommended tabling the rezoning to a study whether to amend the land use plan. And the planning commission recommended denying the rezoning as inconsistent with the plan.
Okay, very good. Thanks, McMillan. Right, so here's what's going on in this place. We are dealing with the town of Rochester, Minnesota, which you may have never heard of. Rochester, Minnesota is the location of the Mayo Clinic. It's a very famous hospital, which I'm sure is very busy right now with all the stuff going on in the world. Unsurprisingly, when you have a very prosperous hospital, you want to build luxury condominiums nearby. But they need to have the land rezoned to have what they call high density residential. High density residential means you're fitting, a 49 unit luxury condo tower in a single building, where otherwise it will just be, houses. There was a meeting held, and they said that this rezoning will have expanded housing. It's a good location, and they were granted it. Now the neighbors appealed. The neighbors are always angry. They don't want to ever change the character of the neighborhood. They want to keep everything the same. And the neighbor argued that you should have closer scrutiny of the rezoning. Why? They said something's up here, right? This was not actually done for the public welfare. This was done to help these wealthy, prosperous medical facilities. Let's look what's going on here. Let's actually look under the hood, so to speak. All right. Robert, are you here? Right. So what did the Minnesota Supreme Court do here? Did they, review this zoning decision with some sort of heightened scrutiny?
Yeah, they looked to see if rational basis was enough, and if the Minnesota legislature actually had the right to do this.
And what did the court find?
They said they did have the right on the rational basis, that it was a reasonable legislative act.
Very good. That's very good. Oh, tell me, what is spot zoning? That was my next question, but you said it.
I believe that's where they pick certain areas and just say, okay, this zone right here.
Yeah, Robert, did they rezone the entire? Sorry, doesn't it? That was an accident. Did they? That's probably a poop emoji I earned for that one. Robert, did the city of Rochester rezone the entire neighborhood or just one lot?
Was it just that one lot?
That's right. Yeah. So generally, when you only zone one lot, there's a sort of presumption that you screwed up, right? There's a presumption that you're targeting one area for favorable treatment. And perhaps under some sort of heightened scrutiny, the court can say, well, you're favoring one group or another, that violates due process. But here the court applied what you might call rational basis review, which I guess is similar to how you have it in federal constitutional law. If reasonable minds can disagree, the courts will defer, right? They're going to be deferential, right? They're not going to second guess the decisions. And there's a very limited scope for judicial review. This flows from Euclid and other decisions we've studied. Courts do not want to be in the business of second guessing zoning decisions. So as a general rule, people always ask about spot zoning. It's going to be rare that courts declare it unconstitutional. I don't know that I've seen any cases, at least in the sort of things that property students study. So as a general matter, spot zoning is upheld. Maybe if it's really egregious, that there's some example like where a bribe was given from the head of the medical center to the developer to the zoning board. Maybe in that case you declare it unconstitutional. But generally the courts will be deferential in these sorts of circumstances. Okay. So the upshot here is spot zoning is almost always going to be valid because the courts are not going to declare it unlawful. All right. Liz, love your cat. Okay. I don't see Liz's cat, but I'll take your word for it. Okay. All right. Any questions on the Minnesota? There I see. Okay. There's a good kitty. Okay. Hi. Okay. All right. Any questions on the Rochester case? No? All right. There were a few notes after the decision, a few different ways to promote flexibility. In some cases, the property owners can agree to modify the land use. In some cases, they can have a contract to modify it. In other cases, community groups can say, if you want to build here, you have to do something, right? So in other words, we will drop our opposition to the construction if you do X. But these aren't too common. All right, any questions on that? All right, let me wrap up and then I'll let you out of here a few minutes early so you can all enjoy your long commutes home. Very, very long commutes. Okay. The important takeaway from today is to really get the difference between variances and special exceptions, right? Variances and special exceptions, right? Variances are designed for unanticipated hardships that might arise. And there's a lot of discretion. You have to show a really serious hardship, and also to make sure you're not trying to radically alter the character of the neighborhood. That does factor into it. Special exceptions are different. With special exceptions, you have a checklist. 1, 2, 3, 4. As long as you check those boxes, you get your special exception. But the 1, 2, 3, 4, the criteria cannot have discretion. They have to be, how do I put it, automatic. You say, is it a certain color? Yes. Is it a certain number of square feet? Yes, right? Things that are very obvious. Anything that requires discretion is beyond the scope of the special exception. Okay. Questions? Questions? And actually, I think, Alexandria, you're on deck for after spring break. I think you're next. You'll be dreading this recitation for next week. If you have nothing else, I'll be here. If you want to email me, oh my God, Lisa, what did you do for your background? Why would you do that? That's awful. That's okay. Fine, you gave me a laugh. That was good. If you have any questions, email me. We can set up a phone call or something else, or we'll do virtual office hours. I don't exactly know how this is going to work. I think it's very likely this will be the setup for the rest of the semester. I'd love to say it's not, but I think it will be. This was, I think, actually fairly productive. We went almost a full 90 minutes. I got everything I wanted to do. We were good. Anything else? All right. Have a happy spring break. I will see you all here when we get back. Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much.